Like they're almost the same exact thing when it comes down to it. So in terms of the outside, very, very similar. The bodies are still holding up very, very well. I mean, we've already done the comparison between these two last year, and it was pretty much the exact same vibe that we were getting at that moment. And even with that, it looks pretty much the same thing. Lightning ports at the bottom right here. And on the back, we're getting standard glass backs. I was about to say frosted. We're getting standard glass backs between these two devices. Dual camera setups, wide and ultra wide cameras, and overall, it's still very good looking, backs. Again, not a lot to complain about here. We're getting wireless charging on both, IP certification, and we're also getting the MagSafe capability behind these devices too, which is nice. So we have the MagSafe accessories that we can use built in within them. And overall, I think it's a very, very good looking phone. And overall, I think they're both very, very good feeling phones, and there's really not a lot to complain about here. The only slight complaint is that the difference between an iPhone 13 to the iPhone 14 in terms of the body is very slim. There's pretty much like no differences at all between them. So that's just kind of what comes with the territory. Kind of funny, but it is what it is. That's just one thing that kind of stands out to me. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of software and longevity, the thing to keep in mind with these devices is that the iPhone 13, it's still supported with software. It's going to be supported for a long period of time. But I really don't know what Apple's going to be doing here when it comes down to the differences between these two. The iPhone 13, again, a big thing, started on iOS, whatever, like 15. But the iPhone 13 has the same chipset as the iPhone 15. The iPhone 13 has the same chipset as the iPhone 14. So is Apple going to go ahead and make the iPhone 13 last less time, even though they have the same chipsets? I don't think Apple's done something like that with iPhones. They've done it with iPads. But I'd be very curious to see what Apple ends up doing it with these iPhones. I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, these two phones are going to be lasting around the same. These two phones are going to be lasting around the same exact time when it comes down to these software updates. So that kind of covers it up there as well. Now let's go and do a speed comparison between these two phones. The iPhone 13 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Where the iPhone 14 has that Apple A15 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigs of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, so let's get into it. 13 is here, 14 is here. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, about the same thing. Music 3, 2, 1. Okay, both are pretty good. Mail 3, 2, 1. About the same thing. Let's go and get into their app stores 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the 13 was a little bit faster there. Scrolling through, let's see if there's a big difference between these two, which I don't really think there's going to be. But you can kind of see that there's a pretty big difference between them. Hopping out of this one. Let's go and get into news 3, 2, 1. Totally messed that one up. Let's go and hop out of these two. Let's go and get into photos 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Hopping out of here. Let's go and get into some other ones. Let's go and get into Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. So this game kind of can be annoying here and there, and there's random pop-ups that can happen. So this time it didn't happen. And you can see with the iPhone 14, it looks like it got into it pretty fast. The iPhone 13 a little bit slower. So that's kind of expected as of this point. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into Call of Duty Mobile. Let's see where this game is. 3, 2, 1. Now this game is pretty big. I'm going to wait until it gets into like a distinguishable panel between the two. But so far, I mean, the iPhone 14 is doing pretty decent, getting ahead of it, which is good. I want the newer iPhone to be faster, and that's kind of what's going on here. These panels, I don't really know what's going on. There's too much loading going on. Both kind of had this downloading thing, but the iPhone 14 is kind of ahead there. Actually, I kind of take that back. They're both kind of the same thing. Maybe the iPhone 14 is a little bit ahead of the iPhone 13 here, but it's still very, very similar. Like, there's really not that big of a difference here in terms of these two loading panels. So you can see as soon as it loads up, I don't know why it has to spend this much time loading, but I guess one of them is going to get into it at some point. So that's kind of enough of this. You guys are getting bored, but hopping out of this one, let's go into another one. Let's go and get into, let's try like Netflix. 3, 2, 1. And almost the same. I think the iPhone 13 was actually the faster one there, which was very, very surprising. Snake vs. Blocks 3, 2, 1. And the iPhone 14 was faster. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into Genshin Impact. 3, 2, 1. Again, this is a very, very big game, so this is also going to take a little bit of time. But it's always interesting to do these kind of games because they're very, very crucial. Opening up this one. Pretty sure iPhone 14 again is the faster one here. The iPhone 13 was a little bit slower. So in terms of this, what I'll tell you is both phones are very, very fast, but the iPhone 14 clearly is a faster one as far as I can tell. So that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the camera comparisons between them, you can kind of see that between both. I would always say that the cameras are very solid on these iPhones. Apple's done a really good job with these cameras. You're getting a wide and ultra wide cameras between both of them, which is awesome. You're getting 4K at 60 on the back and 4K at 60 on the front of both these phones, which is honestly very, very nice as well. And I've always felt like between these two phones, you're getting very solid performing cameras. Now with the iPhone 13, I would say this camera is still very, very good. You can pretty much do whatever you want to with this type of camera. It's still going to be great. I don't know why this phone's not working in terms of the camera right now. It's very, very weird. But I will say from whenever I've used this specific camera, thumbs up for me. Apple's done a great job with it. It's the first one to bring cinematic mode, and overall it was a very solid camera. I have no idea why the camera is not working here, probably because I have to update to iOS 17.0 the beta 2, but that is something that stood out to me right there. With the iPhone 14, in my opinion, very solid camera too. This is a very, very good camera. Probably, it is better than the iPhone 13, but I don't really think it's that much better. Like this camera was, it was good, but I think the iPhone 13 was still very solid as well. This phone, you're getting, again, 0.5x zoom, 5x zoom here too, which is pretty nice. You're getting video mode, cinematic mode, slow mode, time lapse. What else are you getting? Portrait mode. Lots and lots of features built in with this type of camera as well. It's not a crazy amount, but for an iPhone, it's decent, and that's kind of what happens there. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll definitely tell